Sure.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the August PUC 911 Task Force Lunch and Learn. I'm Jennifer Kirkland, and with us today is Saul Sigalov from Hyper, and he's going to present to us on Hyper's AI-powered solution. As always, this meeting is being recorded. This will be placed on our YouTube, and the only official documentation of this meeting will be the documentation that the PUC puts out. And with that, I will turn it over to Saul. Thanks for being here.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jennifer. Yeah, so quick introduction to myself. I think I know a few of you already on the line, but my name is Saul. I'm one of the founding account executives here at Hyper. And yeah, I was invited to kind of present what Hyper is doing. And so I do have a few slides. I promise this not going to be death by PowerPoint at all, but I always like to kind of put together some different ideas of what we're seeing in the industry. And I'll also be going through a demo of our solution. I really don't want this to just be me presenting. I do want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, please ask them, interrupt me and ask. We will have time for questions at the end, but I always like to make these as interactive as I can. Awesome. Before I begin, it would be great to kind of hear, where some of you folks are currently, like which PSAPs are currently joining, and feel free to just shout them out on the mic here. I know Boulder County and Summit County here as well, but yeah, feel free to just shout out where you're all dialing in from. Don't be shy.
So the audio controls are on the bottom of your screen. You should be able to unmute yourself.
All right, I'll just take that as you guys are all just hyper focused and excited about seeing what.
I'm gonna call them all out. We have Grand Junction, we have Summit County, we have Montrose, we have Delta, we have Boulder County, Longmont, we have Pueblo. So you have a good mix of everywhere in the state. And that's the last time I'm going to speak for all of you, because I know none of you are shy. So next time Saul asks a question, it's all on you guys.
It's because I didn't provide the lunch. I will next time, 100%. And hopefully I can be in person next time as well. But I know we got about an hour, so I'll just dive in here. So for today's plan, like I said, it's not going to be death by PowerPoint, but I definitely want to show you, why agencies are exploring voice AI as a whole. And then I'm going to dive into a bit about kind of what Hyper is doing and how we're doing it a little bit different before actually going through some live example calls. And I'll be doing this live in our demo environment, so you'll be able to see a few different aspects of it. And then I'll finish off with just kind of how to explore what we're seeing as like kind of the best evaluation process for something like this, because we do recognize it's new technology. And it's always good to kind of have a plan. So I'll share with you kind of what the best path forward, if this is something that you would foresee at your agency. So the reality that we're seeing today, and I'm sure this is not a shock to many of you, but 4 in 5 PSAPs are chronically understaffed today. And we're seeing this as a combination of a few different reasons. Number one is retention. It's an incredibly difficult job. I actually wasn't really exposed to it much until I joined Hyper, and then actually spending some time at some of these PSAP centers and watching live calls happen. I don't know how you do what you do, but it's incredibly inspiring, and just seeing like how bombarded a lot of the staff is with calls back to back, especially some of the nature of these calls. Retention has always been a big problem. But also just the nature of hiring a lot of call takers and dispatchers. It does take an incredibly long time to train, and then figuring out that maybe this role is not for somebody after a year of training. It happens more often than not. So retention is a big problem, and another reason too is these call volumes are just increasing, which is leading to more of those retention issues. We're seeing an increase of calls for a number of reasons. Cell phones are pretty much ubiquitous now. Almost everyone has them, and a lot of the community is just calling either 911 or the non-emergency lines for almost everything. And I'm sure you all sitting there can have experienced some calls of, why is this even coming into me? Um, and we're starting to see this large rise of call volumes that have been increasing year over year and are going to continue seeing that trend as well. And as we dig into some of these calls as well, we're just noticing that more than half of them are non-emergency in nature. I'm consistently hearing like 60 and sometimes even 70% of the calls going to the PSAP are actually non-emergency, and sometimes they're hitting the 911 lines, and sometimes they even take longer than actual emergency calls as well. Um, so with the kind of mix and the trifecta of all of these issues, we're starting to see a lot of challenges at these PSAPs that are understaffed. It's hard for them, it's hard for the staff, and it's also hard to just service the community as well. So we're starting to see, wait times for centers like I know Denver was experiencing a lot of wait times in the past, and just staff retention is really hard. A lot of staff are just overworked and can't really take time off because there's not enough folks to actually help service these centers as well. So this is where, technology like ours exists. And what we're finding is that because a lot of these calls that are coming in are non-emergency in nature, in the past, the only solution that really existed were automated call trees, and nobody likes them. Everyone always presses zero, and they always just want to talk to a human anyway because, frankly, they suck. They don't really understand, and it's really just like a laundry list of items that if your issue is not on that list, you won't be able to get helped, and you just get transferred to a human anyway. So this is where Hyper came onto the scene, and a lot of other solutions as well. But it really what Hyper is, it's kind of your 24/7 virtual call taker. It's meant for non-emergency calls specifically. And try to think of us as almost like that next iteration of a call tree where it's interactive. And instead of just going through a laundry list of items, you can actually speak to it and say, hey, here's the issue that I'm having, and be able to get put into the correct place. We're usually doing one of three things with our solution. We're either providing information for the caller, we're getting them to the right area by transferring, or we're transferring over to a call taker if there actually is an emergency or if it's more appropriate for them to be speaking to a human if something's out of scope. But as a whole, voice AI, why it works are, here are all the kind of benefits of it, zero hold time. We're noticing that it also helps on the cost side of these centers because it typically costs a lot lower in terms of what it costs for your very expensive call takers to be taking these calls as well. It's available 24/7 and it doesn't call in sick. You don't need to promote it. It's really there to help service a lot of these calls and help triage them. It does support 29 different languages as well, and we can talk more about that. But to me, out of all these benefits, it's the zero hold time. These you're going to be able to answer as many calls as you have coming in, and I think this is really where this technology really starts showing a lot of value long term. It's able to scale very quickly as well. So if you have 5 calls coming in, or if you have 15 calls coming in at once, you're not going to be hit with wait time. So as many lines as you have available open on your call handling solution will be able to answer them and at least start triaging those calls and determining, hey, are these like lower type of problems that we might be able to solve by either transferring or providing information. Any questions so far before I continue? I'm just curious, like I know a few of you I've already been in conversations with and are exploring this, but I'm curious if this is new for any of the folks on the line. Like, have you heard of this like technology before, or is this still something completely new? I'm gonna assume you're all experts if everyone's silent. Okay. Well, with that being said, this is what the technology is in terms of like voice AI. I think where Hyper really differentiates, because there's a few other tools out there. Um, I think our biggest differentiators are really the experience that we have for the callers it's very human-like and natural sounding, which you'll hear in the demo, but also on the simplicity of setting up. And I'll go through the admin console as well and go through some examples of showing how we can actually set up a new type of use case live as well. But it's fast. There's really like not much delay when actually speaking with it. And the reason why I think this is one of the most important pieces of technology like this is if the community doesn't have a good experience using it, they're not going to use it. So you can implement the latest and greatest type of technology, but if it doesn't sound human-like and it's not a good experience using it, they're basically just going to bypass it and speak to a human anyway. So we really do pride ourselves in investing into making sure that it's a very good voice experience and it's going to be as human-like as possible. We're not necessarily looking to trick people, but really to try and provide them an experience that's similar to working with a human and actually understanding them and getting them to the correct area. So that's our philosophy, always trying to make our solution as best for the customer experience or for the caller experience. And then on the back end, which I'll show you, the setup is a lot easier than traditional systems. It's not based off of a keyword type of setup. It's actually more based off of just explaining, hey, this is how you handle a call. And I'll go through that in a little bit more details here. But why don't I go into a just simple example of just a noise complaint with a firework going on, and I'll show you how our solution is set up to handle something like that with providing a SMS message and then also potentially escalating it. So Jennifer, help me out. Let me know if you don't hear any sound, and I'll go ahead and try this.
We heard that.
Okay.
This is the Winnipeg Police Service non-emergency line.
My apologies. That was the wrong number.
But we could hear it.
Okay, perfect.
This is the non-emergency police line. How can I help?
Hey, my neighbor is setting up some fireworks.
Can you please provide the address or location where your neighbor is setting up the fireworks?
Yeah, it's happening around 1400 Curtis Street.
I have the address 1400 Curtis Street in Denver. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Do you have a cell phone capable of receiving a text message?
Yeah, I do, but why do you need my cell number? I'm calling about my asshole neighbor.
I understand your concern about your neighbor. We send a link via text so you can submit an online report about the fireworks, which helps us send an officer to address the situation. Can you please provide your phone number?
Sure, that sounds fair. It's 778-200-3720.
I have your phone number as 778-200-3720. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
I have sent you a link via text to submit an online report about the fireworks so an officer can be sent out. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Actually, you know what? One of the fireworks just landed in my backyard and it hit my dog and now he's on fire.
This sounds like an emergency situation. Please hold while I transfer your call to an operator.
All right. I'll pause there. I'll show you. So we had a couple of different outcomes here. The first one was this SMS that came through 11:13. I'm Pacific time, so just showing the timestamp. And what I did was I put the Denver online police reporting here. So having that capability of sending an SMS is just one potential outcome. You may handle noise complaints differently, and I'll show you how to change that. But curious just to get everyone's take and maybe Jennifer on your end, because I'm sure you haven't heard ours before. What did you think of the voice, and is this something that sounded a little bit more like human-like? I'm curious what the thoughts were.
Well, I'll go first while everybody else is finding the mute button because the silence is weird, y'all. But I thought that the voice sounded very human, and I wondered if the typing noise was added just to make it more realistic, or if that's actually a system noise that can't be helped.
No, it is something that we added in, and we added in based off feedback that we got from other PSAPs as well. So instead of just having like silence, oh, Michael has a question. But yeah, this was feedback that we got, and we added this into to the voice.
Yeah,
Go ahead,
and
Michael.
my comment was going to be along those same lines. It is a very realistic sounding in that kind of uncanny valley area. Have you gotten any feedback or concerns, any complaints from citizens who think they're starting with somebody real and then get upset that, you know, are they being swindled by getting to an AI that they didn't realize because of how realistic it's trying to sound?
It's a good question. We haven't received negative feedback. We've seen more from the live calls that we have done, and we monitor a lot of these calls through initial deployment just to make sure things are going well. And it's more so like they get surprised, but there hasn't been like a negative connotation of like, oh my God, I got swindled. It was, oh, I can't believe like that was AI. Like that sounded so real. And they might still want to speak to a human or whatever, but from the reactions of the recordings that we have seen, it's been more surprise, not so much negative and anger. The other thing I was going to say too, this voice is not fixed. We use this for our demo because we found that it's just, you know, for most people, they like hearing like a female voice and just having this kind of tonality and pace. But all of this is customizable. There's probably like 50 to 100 different voices you can choose from, and you can configure a lot of them. So we can really change them to how you would like it to hear. Because we know it's not one size fits all for everyone. The other thing I'll highlight here was the live transcript happening as well. So what we're noticing is potentially even new types of roles being created for call takers, where they're the ones that would be managing the inbound non-emergency, and they would essentially be the, you know, either administrator or viewer of Hyper, and they'll be able to actually see all the calls coming in live on this screen, and they'll be able to kind of go into some of these calls as well and start seeing the live transcription happening. The other thing too, for our customers that go live, we usually have a button on the side that allows them to just take over the call if they, for some reason, start seeing that it's not going the correct way that it would want to. The other thing that we do at the end of the call is we do provide a call summary. This is a different call that I did. I didn't provide a name on this one, but we are grabbing information from the transcript and parsing it out into these different fields, such as like the address and the summary and things like that. And the cool thing is that we can take this data and push it into other systems. So if you think about your CAD system and trying to take on more complicated calls that actually require a call for service, this is something that you can use Hyper for, where, you know, let's say for a noise complaint, you actually do create a call for service and you have to push this call over into your CAD. We can take all this information, parse it into specific fields, and then push that data into your CAD system. So you would be able to kind of see some of the basic information, such as like name and address that was provided in the dialogue, and have it in the specific fields in your CAD system. Right now, for those integrations, we usually have it as like a for review for the call taker before they actually send it to dispatch, just to make sure all the information is correct. But a lot of the heavy lifting would be done where the information would just be put into the system. And I know that's usually a question like, does it integrate with CAD? So I wanted to get ahead of that. We can integrate with many different CADs. Most of the more modern ones that have like an API connection, we should be able to build out an integration with. Awesome. Let me do another call. I want to highlight, without changing anything in the system, right now it's set up to handle these noise complaints. And if you noticed on the last one, I mentioned firework. So it is able to understand without actually putting keywords in that firework is related to noise. I'm going to do another one just to showcase that. And then I want to actually make some changes in the configuration to show you how easy it is to set up. So let me just do another quick call here.
This is the non-emergency police line. How can I help?
Hey, my neighbor's dog is barking.
Could you please provide the address where the dog barking is happening? If you are unsure,
But
you can
before I
provide your
do
address
that,
to help us
what are you going to do about it?
I understand your concern. Once I have the address, I can guide you on how to report the issue so that an officer can be sent to investigate the noise complaint. Could you?
Okay. So I just want to show you that it's basically going through the same protocol I just did with the fireworks. It's grabbing the address and it's going to send over like an SMS and things like that. But let's say you handle barking dogs a little bit differently than just generalized noise complaints, and you want to actually put a specific protocol for something like that. So what we can do is I'll go over to the settings here and kind of showcase the admin console. And in here are usually where we set up all the different settings, such as like the phone number for your non-emergency line, what the number is to transfer over to an operator, which I showcased in like the last example, and then just some basic information such as how to do the intro line and what to say and things like that. But in this main prompt area, so this is where the brains of Hyper exists. And the one thing I want to highlight here is that all of it is based in natural language. So I'm just going to open it and you're going to be hit with a big wall of text. So don't get too scared here. But really what this is at the very top here, these are just basic protocols and guidelines and guardrails to follow. So to just make sure that you're not getting it to provide you recipes for cooking and things like that, and really only to adhere to specific, hey, follow these SOPs that are listed below, and here's like your personality and things like that. As I scroll down, these are a bunch of different SOPs that we have here. I'll just scroll down to the bottom here. And let's say for barking dog, you want to be able to add in a specific protocol for that. So I had one prepared before. I'm just going to paste it in here. But really what this is, and this is anybody, usually even in the comm center, can set something like this up. We usually would use like a supervisor or someone that we would deem as an admin. But you don't need to know any programmative language. You don't need to know development. It's no coding. It's literally just using English language and it's saying, hey, if it's about a barking dog, ask for the location, say, hey, this is handled by animal care and control, and transfer them essentially to animal care and control. So I'm going to go ahead and save it here. Give it a second and I will give it another call, and I am doing this live, so I really hope this works, but let me give it a call.
This is the non-emergency police line. How can I help?
Hey, my neighbor's dog is barking.
Can you please provide the location where the barking is occurring?
Yeah, it's happening around 1400 Curtis Street.
I have the address as 1400 Curtis Street in Denver. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Dog barking complaints are handled by animal control. Would you like me to transfer you to animal control?
Sure, that works.
Please hold while I connect you to animal control.
Okay, so it works. Curious what your thoughts are on that. And Michael, maybe I'll call you out from Summit County just because I know you have been doing a lot of this with Prepared. Curious how a lot of the setup of our tool kind of compares to some of the different tools out there. Might have lost him. That's okay. And feel free to speak up anybody else that might be interested too. Oh yeah, go ahead, Patty.
So at any time on these calls, can they request the classic representative?
Yeah,
Anywhere
absolutely.
in that call? Okay.
Yeah, anywhere in that call, and you have full control over how quickly they would get sent as well. We have some customers that just say, hey, if they just want to speak to a human, just send them over. This is different than if we actually detect that that an emergency is going on. So if things like fire are mentioned, or if there's violence or somebody that like feels like threatened, those automatically would go over to your 911 line and to like to a call taker. But For those ones where, maybe they don't want to just like use the non-emergency, we do have some PSAPs that want to actually put some guardrails of like, well, let me actually just, before I transfer, you can just tell me what this is about, because maybe I can help you out. So we can add those additional questions in if you choose so. So it's fully customizable. Go ahead, Michael.
For a typical deployment, can you walk through kind of the handoff, hyper helping set up, the handoff, and then is there a role where it's almost completely handled in-house, or is there still support offered on your end if there's questions?
Yeah, great question. So I'll just walk through it verbally. So typically what happens once all the paperwork is completed, we would spin up an instance of Hyper for you. And from there, there's a few things that happen. So usually we start off with a discovery call with our deployment team, with your team we usually gather a lot of this information before, but it's really just to like make sure we cover everything. We really just understand what are those call types that we're going to be starting with. We usually start with like 10 to 15 different SOPs, if you would. And we would just make sure, hey, do we have these correct? Or this is what we're going to be configuring. And then our team would actually be building out this main prompt for you. So the only thing that your team really has to do at this point is really spend time with our team and provide documentation of, hey, here's how we handle these calls. Here's what we would be setting up. Here are the questions to ask for each of these calls. Here's all the routing of where we would actually need these calls either routed or the SMS provided or whatever it might be. All the configuration stuff. That usually takes about a month if we're talking about 10 to 15 different call types. From there, we do internal testing with your team. So your team calls into the line and tests it out, make sure all of that works. That usually lasts for about 2-3 weeks. We do a lot of internal testing and refinement. And then at that point, at like the 2-month mark, we would then turn it on for limited access to the community. So we would do maybe 1 or 2 days of the week, maybe a couple of hours during specific times, where we would turn this on. So the non-emergency line would go to Hyper. And we also would be monitoring internally from Hyper, monitoring those calls and listening to the recordings, making sure everything's correct and make changes as need be. After that, we usually do that and start ramping up from there. So maybe we start with like 1 day a week, a couple of hours, moving up to 3 to 4 days a week, longer hours, ultimately working up to that 24/7. And that could range, depending on the complexity of the setup that you have, the types of calls. If they're more simple, you'd probably be 24/7, like a lot quicker. If they're more complex, or if we need CAD integrations, that might take a little bit longer. But along the whole way, we are helping you from the support side. We usually like to identify at least 1 or 2 admins from the PSAP that would help be the internal champions and kind of managing it internally as well. Because we usually like to have like some sort of liaison between the center and Hyper. We could manage everything, but the reality is, your PSAP a lot better than we do. Does that help answer the question? It was a
It
bit
does,
long-winded,
thank
but
you.
okay.
And then, so what if along the way we totally spaced a department that is getting a lot of requests? So let's just say like our civil department, and time again, people are saying, I need the civil department, and nothing has been built in there as a prompt. Is there a way to look through analytics or something and try to find
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're jumping ahead, and I'll show you the analytics.
I can
But
wait.
yeah, no worries. Steve, I see that you have a question as well.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, thanks. Going back to your first example, when you had the call taker interrogation, they used the street, Curtis Street. Your AI immediately knew that it was Denver. How does address verification work when it comes to the voice? Is it referencing GIS? And especially for PSAPs like ours that have multiple cities where 123 Main Street could be in 5 different locations.
Totally. Yeah, that's a great question. And I usually do talk about that, so I'm glad you brought it up. So right now, we do have address verification, and this is the first iteration of it, so keep that in mind. But what we've done, it's not referencing GIS data at this point. It's just referencing just geolocation using like a Google Maps and just like mapping software. And what we're doing is we're right here on the kind of like interface here, we're kind of generalizing, and this is for demo purposes. I can quickly change it. But what it's doing, it's basically putting a longitude and latitude around specific cities that would be covered. So if I call in and just give it a random address, which I can do right now, it's going to basically just say, if it's not found in Denver in that longitude and latitude, it would just say, hey, I can't find that address. Keep in mind, this is just initial iteration of it, and we're going to continue refining and getting a bit more specific with it. But what we are starting to work with some PSAPs that are, similar to yours, where you're covering multiple jurisdictions, we'll be able to put multiple different areas of coverage, if you will, around those areas. And if an address exists in those areas, it's going to continue with the call and say, yeah, okay, great, this exists and it's a real address. If it exists outside of it, it would say, hey, did you get the right address? It's not in the vicinity.
So is that, do we provide a GIS layer, whether it's a centerline or an address point file, or are you asking for a unique layer that has community names in addition to municipalities?
At this point, it's a lot more like high level, and I would say it's really just longitude and latitude. So probably that file that you have that has kind of the areas of coverage, we would then put it into Hyper and basically configure it from there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And this is another component that we actually got feedback from our customers saying, hey, like, it's great that we can provide an address, but we want to verify that this address actually exists in our area of coverage. So just another way that we're really focused on the public safety sector as well. So this and the typing that you heard earlier. Awesome. Michael, I'll go over to your question just around like analytics. So all the calls that are coming in here, I'll start with this. So this is basically the call screen that has all these calls. And then based on the transcript, we're also tagging these calls. You can see there's like noise complaints, animal care and control, some generic calls. And because we can gather all this data, we can then represent this in a dashboard type of configuration. So these are the analytics of my demo environment here. I do a lot of noise complaint calls and I've been to a lot of conferences, so that's why it's very heavy on noise complaint. But you can see here, there's like a cow out call. This is for a rural center that I was working with. There's like court cases, animal care and control. You can see a breakdown of what types of calls are coming in. And I think this is alluding to your question of, based on this data, maybe if you're getting a lot of inquiries that are civil, that are going over to the city, maybe talk with them about creating a 311 type of program, saying like, hey, 25% of the calls coming in are going to you anyway. Maybe you need a 311 line and we can help educate the community on that, just as an example. But also give you insight. And I think why this is important too, especially the centers that don't create a call for service for every single call. A lot of this data typically does get missed if it's not hitting the CAD system. If it is hitting the CAD system, you do typically get some of this information, but if it's not, a lot of this is missed and you can't really tell for the non-calls for service, how many we're getting, how long those calls are as well, and when we're getting them as well. So this graph kind of represents the timeline of calls coming in. So over here, we weren't really at conferences, so that's why there weren't many calls and it kind of ramped up over time. The cool thing about this too, you can also download this as a CSV. You're not fixed to just seeing this in Hyper. You can download it and open it up in Excel and kind of manipulate the data and visualize it in there as well. And this comes out of the box. You don't need to configure these dashboards. Did that help answer the question there, Michael?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. So These are great questions, by the way, and feel free to keep chiming in as more questions are coming up, because I'm running out of things to talk about. We have gone through most of the demo, to be honest. I can go through a couple of more calls. I think I can showcase Patty how we can help escalate calls if they're like asking either for like a representative or if there's like an emergency detected, if that would help. Oh, here's another one. We can also create different, because all of this is based off of natural language for like your different use cases, we could create specific call types that are, maybe a little bit more like subtle in nature. So I know a popular one is if somebody calls 911 and they're asking for a pizza order, to be able to like, hey, that's typically code for an emergency. And that's something I set up in my demo environment as well. And I can showcase what that sounds like if you like.
This is the non-emergency police line. How can I help?
Hey, I'd like to order a pizza.
It sounds like you are requesting a pizza, which might be code that you are in danger. Can you please confirm if you are in danger?
Yes.
Transferring you to 911. Please hold while I forward your call.
So just as an example, as an emergency that we detected, and that was a very short prompt that I added in that other PSAPs were questioning. Yes, Michael.
Is it being transferred on like a non-emergency 10-digit line to something that, is higher priority?
Yeah, good question. So it would be transferred to a 10-digit line. So this is a question that comes up a lot. So for these emergency situations, we typically go one of two ways. I'd say majority of PSAPs lean one way over the other. We could say, hey, hang up and call 911. So if you call 911, you're typically getting the anti-alley data when they do that. Because this is a transfer, you're not typically getting you're not going to be getting the anti-alley data as of this point. Potentially when next gen comes out, there might be some ways to transfer this over like a zip line, and there would be some more metadata that gets transferred over. But most of the PSAPs that we work with just transfer it. Like they don't want them to hang up, especially if there's like an emergency. They just want to be able to just get this to a call taker. And the way that we set it up is there's this operator number that we have for kind of like emergencies. Like this would be internally where you would set this up with your call handling, and we provide the number of where you want us to transfer to get a hold of like a call taker, or maybe there's a priority line, or there's a few different setups that we can have for that. But this is not the only number that we can transfer to in the setup. So this would be the operator number is kind of emergency detected. This is going to some sort of operator. If you want to transfer to other departments and things like that, we do have call forwarding here where you'd be able to set up different departments. So you mentioned if there's like a civil dispute, call here. If this is the jail, then call here. So it still operates very much like a smart IVR system where you can tell it, hey, transfer me to Sergeant so-and-so, or transfer me to the captain. We can still use it for those basic use cases, and then also have it transferred to specific departments as well. And this is where you would set that up.
Is there any limitation on the number of call forwarding numbers?
We haven't ran into them. How many do you have at Boulder that you would want like transferred out to?
I don't know. I was just curious if there's limitations.
We haven't run into that. No, I'd say hasn't been a problem yet. That's a good question though. Okay, we still got another about 20 minutes left. I think I've showcased most of what I typically do showcase. Yeah, go ahead. Patty, Steve, yeah.
Yeah, I was just wondering, is the price based on number of lines, population, call load?
Yeah, good question. It's just based off number of calls. We try to keep it as simple as possible. It's not even based off duration of calls. it's kind of the model where you would get a specific amount of calls for the year, and then you would draw down on those throughout the year. So this is, I think, a good segue actually to my next steps here. But before I do that, Steve, I saw your hand up as well.
Yeah, I was just wondering if what does it do if it answers and there's screaming? Like somebody
Yeah,
dials a non-emergency line and accidentally, it should be a 911 call. How does it react?
yeah, that's a good question. It would typically transfer to somebody if there's like a lot of loud noise and screaming. The other reason why it would transfer is if it doesn't understand, if someone's like non-coherent, even if they are speaking English of some sort, but it's just not coherent or they doesn't understand, we would transfer over to a call taker. Most of our deployments, we usually are pretty like high sensitivity to just transferring to a call taker if something's like just not understood. So status quo, it's not going to hang up. It's never going to hang up. It's always going to do one of three things: either transfer to a call taker if it doesn't understand, or if it does understand what the protocol is, or if we set up the protocol, it would then follow those instructions. So sending the SMS or transferring. And then the other results is really just transferring to a call taker. Yeah. Yeah, we're really just trying to do the initial triage and at least try and help and deflect some of these calls away from the call takers, because ultimately we are seeing actually some pretty good success rates with our clients right now. We're even seeing deflection up to 60% with some of our clients, which is pretty big, and it's almost allowing them to not necessarily need to hire the three people that they're missing from their like core skeleton crew even. So I guess like on my end, the results are pretty significant. Go ahead, Claire.
You can finish your thought if you want.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say we're just noticing pretty significant results, and from a safety aspect, end of the day, it's just going to be status quo. Transfer over to a call taker. They're going to get a hold of a human regardless. We're just trying to see if we can maybe deflect some of those ones that can be deflected. But yeah, go ahead, Claire.
Would it be possible, since we have so many jurisdictions, for the link to the online reporting to be a different per city?
Yeah, absolutely. So we could have it so that based on the address that they provided, if it goes to a different jurisdiction, then it would follow a different set of protocols.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. But yeah, I guess like on my end here, just to wrap up a little bit. So I go through hundreds of these different evaluations. Some are kind of at the late stages. Even actually some folks from Colorado. I know Aurora is actually pretty far down one of these evaluations and looking to get something set up. But usually what we do, we start off with a discovery with your center. I know a few of you we've already had something like that. Boulder County, I'm looking at you guys. But typically from there, we would do like a initial mock-up of, okay, why don't we define what some of these call types are that we could help automate. We would go through like a demo, and then based on those call types, I'd be able to actually showcase like, hey, here's how you would have it set up in Hyper. Off of that, we then have like a pretty good boilerplate template to use to be able to align with pricing and scoping and budget and internal approvals. We typically get involved with IT and security at some point to vet out the system. Been through a lot of different security reviews as well. And then once that's completed, we would put together kind of the final terms and approval, and then go through actual implementation once everything's on board. Most of these implementations, I would say, we start small. We typically start with pilot projects because I know because this technology is so new, it's hard to get kind of like, okay, we're just going to automate all 70% or 80% of your calls coming in. Typically unrealistic unless this is kind of like a defined project with like a RFP and things like that. Most centers actually just start with a pilot project. So we would typically take like a subset of your calls, maybe like 20% of them, and start with that. prove that out over a specific time period. It could be about 6 months, 4 months, something like that. And then we would be able to present that internally for like a larger scale project. But that's all I had on my end. Still got about 15 minutes left. I'd love to address any more questions from the team. It feels like it's the same familiar faces that keep talking. I'd love to hear from folks that maybe if you haven't had a chance to speak, give me critical feedback if that's what you have as well. Happy to kind of address any questions or concerns, even like wondering if this is something that everyone's like, yeah, like we definitely need this, or if there is some hesitation from folks in the Zoom as well. I'm going to start calling names out.
Well,
All right,
Saul, I thought it was a great presentation, and I think maybe you just did a really good job of answering everybody's questions. So
it's always what it's like, yeah. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity, guys. I'm in Colorado fairly often. I'm working with a few different centers there, at least with like either early conversations or late stage conversations. If you have any questions or would like to reach out, my email is saul.sigalov@callhyper. I'll try and send an email to everybody on the line. Jen, if you can provide some of those emails, and happy to take on some of these conversations offline as well.
Well, we really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for the demo and for spending some time with us. And this will be put out onto our YouTube channel, so those who weren't able to join us in person will be able to watch, and hopefully we'll be reaching out to you with questions as well. So
That'll be
appreciate
great.
your time, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Have a great day.
Hey.